Okay, so hi Naomi and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us again. On Monday at our initial webinar, you certainly attracted the most queries, perhaps unsurprisingly given the topic you were talking about at the current time. So thank you very much for coming back to chat with me again about the questions that our participants have raised. So I suppose I'll start by just saying that, you know, in your capacity, in your role as Head of Tax Compliance with KSi Faulkner Orr, you're giving your opinion here, but we all know it's a really rapidly evolving situation. So people need to keep updated by checking Revenue's website. Is there anywhere else they should particularly reach out to?
Check the Revenue website, check welfare.ie or gov.ie as it's now called, to sort of see from the welfare point of view any changes there. Keep talking to your accountants, your tax advisors, payroll. This is constantly changing. The legislation is a bit vague as well. So everything that Revenue are issuing is pure guidance. There's nothing set in stone. So this is just this is how we think it will be done. So everything's open to interpretation. So it's a bit hard at the moment, but at the moment you've got Revenue issued new guidelines on the 5th of April, which was Sunday. That's the 5th version that's come out since the 23rd of March. I will say there'll be another couple of versions before they issue out the new final ones for the 20th of April, where the scheme gets updated again. So constantly changing.
Yeah. So just be vigilant, but hopefully these answers will at least give people a little bit of guidance on what is a very complex area. So look, I'll crack on with the questions because you did get quite a few, which was great to see. So first off, Naomi, have you any idea when Revenue might pay out CHY2 tax refunds to charities? Many have applied, but refunds are slow yet needed at this time.
This is nothing to do with COVID-19. I just want to stress that part out on it. So this has happened to me. Basically, you as a charity will make your submission to Revenue to claim all your refunds. But Revenue then have to wait for the individual donors to make their tax return submissions. So if you've got donors who are self-assessed, Form 11 people who don't have to submit a return until October this year, you mightn't get the refunds until November this year. There's nothing you can do about it unless you want to contact your donors and give them a little nudge to sort of say, get your tax return in. But that's how it works. It's happened to me. I sent in a load of them and kind of went, how come that single of them got applied, but these other 10 didn't? Did it go missing? And they went, oh no, we're waiting for tax returns to come in. So your donors need to get their tax returns in, is the short answer, before Revenue will issue out the refunds. That's all I can say on it.
Okay, no, that's perfect. Yeah, that's really clear. Thank you. So the next question then we have is from an employer who is employing their staff through the revenue scheme. However, it seems that they are not eligible themselves because they used to earn €1,000 after tax up until the 15th of March. And they are not in any position to take this earning now because their revenue has ceased. So they're not able to get the scheme, but they don't have any income, I suppose, is the question there.
Yeah, pretty much. Revenue are looking at the January to February payroll for everybody. So if, depending on what your average salary was between 1 January and 29 February, that's what they're going to look at. And it's actually the net pay, including BIKs. So if your net pay was 750 into your hand, but you had BIKs totaling another, say, 250, yeah, you're over the 960, so you don't get anything. You get no subsidies. And if your company can't afford to pay you, you could try looking at the pandemic unemployment payment, basically fire yourself out of your job and see if you can go on and get the 350 directly from the Department of Social Welfare. But on the current standing at the moment, once you're over the 960 per week, you don't get a penny from the subsidy. It's up to your employer to see, can they give you any money, but you don't qualify.
So this person is the employer in this case, but the same principle applies, I presume.
Same principle applies. They're kind of an employer and a company. If it's a company, the company is a separate entity to you. So that's where you kind of got to put on company head and employee head onto this one. So you're an employee of the company. You can't get paid. Give yourself what will be the old P45 and see, can you do the PUP? The worst thing the welfare can say to you if you apply for the PUP is no. So, don't ask the question, you're not going to get an answer. I'd say put an application and see what happens.
Yeah, okay, that's solid advice. Yeah, it's something, definitely something to think about. Um, okay, the next question, so what is the support situation with regard to ROI registered companies with employees working and living in Northern Ireland paying HMRC tax? Now, I haven't a clue what these acronyms are, Naomi, so I'm going to throw it to you. Can they claim the Employee Assistance Scheme? Am I able as the employer to qualify for the scheme now that my earnings are well under 960 per week? Well, I think you've answered the last part of the question in your previous answer. It depends on what your earnings were in January and February, not what they are right now. Isn't that correct?
That's exactly it, yeah.
Okay.
And with regards to the other part, so with regard to a Republic of Ireland registered company with employees living and working in Northern Ireland, paying Her Majesty's Revenue Commissioners, if they're paying all their, if you're basically operating a Northern Ireland payroll, it's the Northern Ireland rules that apply. And so we have clients that would be, say, a UK registered company, but they've got an Irish payroll system going on. Their employers are paying Irish payroll taxes. They can qualify for the Irish subsidies. If you're not paying taxes, if your employees aren't paying their taxes, their payroll taxes in Ireland, they're paying it up in Northern Ireland. It's the Northern Ireland rules that will apply to those individuals. They need to go. I know the supports are probably a lot less, but that's where they need to go to, is the Northern Ireland welfare authorities, national insurance, HMRC, and see what they say. But no, they don't qualify for the Irish ones.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Another one then on the COVID salary subsidy, and the question is, can you let some employees go, those that were only recently hired, and keep the older staff that have been employed for years?
Yes, is a short answer. You can. Employees hired after 20th of February don't qualify for the wage subsidy scheme at all because they wouldn't have any averages there to go with. You can look at it a bit of a HR exercise as well, though, you know, which is a whole different kettle of fish on it. Will your newer staff be happy about that? Who knows? But if they're not going to qualify the subsidy scheme and you can't afford to pay them, at least you know if you let them go, they can get the PUP payment from welfare, which is €350 per week. So they get something. It's giving them something rather than giving them nothing.
Yeah, I think, and that's a really good point. There probably is a little bit of crossover there with HR queries, which obviously we'll address through another forum in terms of how you manage that, and the legal employee regulation around bringing staff back and letting staff go and so on. So we'll touch on that somewhere else. From the same person, a little follow-up query there. They have a question on apprentices. So they had an apprentice return from Sulis, where he was taking home the standard 340 for the previous 10 weeks. But unfortunately, the way his payroll averages, runs his average for January and February, it only works out at 240. So a week and a half pay instead of the full pay he was getting. So his salary has severely dropped using the scheme. We are subcontractors and we have no sales while the sites are closed.
Yeah, this is a common thing. They receive more from welfare than be retained by the employers. Probably let them go onto the scheme there directly with welfare. Probably no harm to get the apprentice to talk to Sulis to see if there's any openings at Sulis that they might have some wiggle room on. And also check that if he does get fired by his bosses, or temporarily laid off, I suppose is a better phrase of it, at this time, will it impact his apprenticeship in any shape or form? And I'm not overly sure about Sulis, but I know it's relating to apprenticeships and all that. They might have some schemes set up there. But all I could say is talk to Sulis, talk to the Department of Social Welfare, see what they say. But yeah, there's a lot of people out there who will be impacted in a similar thing. And it's basically, the revenue introduced this as a blanket, but unfortunately some people don't get covered by it.
Okay. Yeah, and again, I think that's really important. What you're saying there is reach out. If you don't ask, you don't get. So check in with those bodies, check with the Sulis, check with different organisations, and see what is available. Because I think in a time like this, there's a lot of troubleshooting going on. So problems are being solved as they pop up.
Absolutely. Like every time you ask revenue a question, they update their FAQs. So, you know, keep asking.
Yeah, great. Okay, the next question we have then relates to, we have a director who was on our payroll this past year, but did not take a salary in 2020 due to cash position. they have stayed on the payroll, but they're not paid. Are they eligible for the wage subsidy scheme?
Technically speaking, yes, they are. They're eligible for the scheme. Whether or not they will get anything is probably no, because their average salary for January and February is nil, and 70% of nil is nil. So again, probably they may be better off looking to see can they avail of the PUP from welfare. But under the subsidy scheme, probably not if there's no average there for them to work off of.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. The next question then, I am self-employed and my business went off the cliff at the end of February 20, which is a really difficult situation, of course, and lots of people going through similar. I applied on the 27th of March for the COVID unemployment payment and received €350 last Tuesday, but did not receive any arrears. Do you know if arrears are being paid by the Department of Social Protection later?
Honestly, no is the answer to it. The welfare are going through these as quickly as they can to try and get as many payments out there as possible. Whether or not they'll go back into arrears, it comes down to when the payments actually increase from the 203 to the 350. I would say get onto them, ask them the question, but people are having hit and miss with welfare at the moment. Again, it's hard to give a blanket answer to sort of say, oh yes, you'll definitely get this. Some people are getting their payments straight away. Some people aren't. There's been a few thousand cases of people getting applications rejected. So what the situation there at the moment is, who knows? Again, they're scrambling to try and cover everybody.
Yeah, so again, if you ask, it goes in probably with many others asking similar questions, and once they're getting those questions, they have to react to them. So yeah, and hopefully that guides you a little bit, Jerry, even if we don't have a definitive answer. Now another question from Jerry as well is, if I change to paying salaried people through the COVID scheme, through the payroll, instead of getting them the payment directly from social welfare, do I have to reactivate all employees that were on the payroll on the 29th of February?
You only need to reactivate those employees that you're taking back. You can go on an employee by employee basis. So if you laid everybody off and then realize, oh, hang on, I can actually afford to pay certain people, take them back on. Again, it's a bit of a PR, HR query there as well as to who do you take back and why you didn't take back everybody or nobody and all that. So you have to reinstate them and then operate the wage subsidy scheme, but make sure that the employees you do take back cancel their subsidies or payments from welfare, because if they get the payment on the double, there's going to be a clawback. So, they just need to be sure that whatever date you take them back from, they pay back then to welfare, or they inform welfare to stop getting the payments so they don't get the double hit of money.
Okay, so there's a couple of really key things to think about carefully there and handle it sensitively. One, from an optics point of view and from a human resource management point of view, while you might be technically able to do these things, think about the consequences, I suppose, of those actions, but then also making sure that your employees are clear and aware that they need to cancel any other claims that they may have, so that they don't get in trouble further down the line and have a bill on their hands.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that really is. It's very much, those sort of questions are very HR orientated questions, because if you hire back one person but not the other person, why? Why did you pick them over me, sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to have a separate Q&A function for HR queries later in the program. So I'll take note of those to transfer into the HR query session as well. And then our last question, Naomi, is that from someone who has read that the wage subsidy is only available for employees up to 76k per annum. If annual salary is over 76k, does this mean we cannot claim the wage subsidy for this employee?
Pretty much yes. If their net average weekly wage, you need to look at what they're getting after taxes. So it's a gross salary less the PAYE, KSi, USC is greater than €960 per week, then there is no wage subsidy available for those employees. This scheme is very much geared towards the low to middle earner, not the high earners out there. It is a bit unfair on one side. I mean, you can take a whole argument over the ethics and morality and whatever else about it. But no, the guidelines are very state there, and they're in the legislation. The bill that was put through there recently, it's very clear. Anyone over the 960 doesn't get a subsidy.
Okay, I mean that's crystal clear as it stands, whatever your stance or opinion on it might be. So
Yeah.
that clears that up very nicely. So that's the end of our questions, Naomi. Thank you so much for bringing your expertise and your giving of your time, not only on Monday to give us that great overview, but also for taking the time today to answer the follow-up questions that our participants had. I know they'll really appreciate it. So on behalf of them, I pass on their thanks.
No, thank you very much for having me. It was interesting, and it was a good way to brush up on everything as well.
That's it. That's brilliant news. Listen, thank you so much, Naomi. Take care, and I will talk to you soon.